here's Brody Brazil.
I'm going to start this video with kind of an obvious disclaimer I hope you understand. That the biggest thing surrounding the Oakland A's here in 2024 is still not actually the baseball itself. It's the future of the franchise and these next few temporary seasons in Sacramento, and then what ultimately ever, whenever, wherever happens after that. We'll obviously wait and see to find out. So I guess that makes this video kind of the sub-headline of 2024, and it is the actual baseball season that's happening, and a team that's surprising a lot of people across Major League Baseball. I've got to say it, it's early, and it's only been a month, and they don't even have a winning record, but compared to where they've been and who they've been and how they've performed, these first couple weeks of the season is a significant departure from that. Right out of the gate, you got to remember, they were 60 and 102 2 years ago. They were 50 and 112 last year. Right now, off to a 12 and 17 start. 500, I understand. Nothing magnificent about that, but it is a 67 win pace, which puts them at a plus 17 difference if we're going to extrapolate this in the rest of the season. Now, I don't know if that's something they can sustain. By the way, I hope you maintain to the end of the video. We'll talk about that and try and answer that question. But as of right now, 1 month in, 29 games, a 67 win pace. Not a lot of teams aim for that. But again, considering where they've been and the fact that they didn't really go out and drastically make their team better, they just matured, they added a few complementary pieces, you're getting some different results. They're 8-8 on the road. Actually, where they've played worst is at home at the Coliseum. 8 of their 17 losses, I also want to say this too, have been decided by 2 or fewer runs. Even when they lose this season, a lot of times it's been a competitive loss. Now, losses aren't great for anybody, but when you're a team that's trying to get better and you notice you're closer and in those games that you lose, there is something to be said about it. They're also 6-5 in one-run games, so that kind of makes you think twice about the record. What if they won a few more of those games, but what if they lost a few more of those games? How does the record look then? They also, if you remember, started off 1-7. So to go 11-10 since then, I mean, that's the winning record you talk about after the first 8 games of the season. So out of the gate, again, small sample size. It's just 1 month. We'll talk more about sustaining it in just a second. They definitely have found something. And a lot of teams will say, oh, we found our guy. We found the right guy for the job, whether it's a starter, an ace, a cleanup hitter, a right fielder, a third baseman, whatever. We found the guy. Well, the Oakland A's may have found more than just their guy. They may have found something in Mason Miller as a closer. And I'll be the first to tell you, I knew this was coming back in December. I'll explain that in just a second. But the bullpen has generally also been good. You don't get to a save situation, which I think Miller is now at 7 or 8 saves on the season. Sorry, it's the weekend. Things are blending in. But the point is that he's finishing the job, and the bullpen is the one getting him there. They have a 2.86 ERA as a group, which is the 7th lowest in all of Major League Baseball. And we'll talk about the starters and the great job they've been doing too. This A's team does not score a lot of runs. They got to win a lot of close games, a lot of low-scoring games. The bullpen's been a part of that, but Mason Miller, my goodness. You've got somebody who was a starter last year and couldn't stay healthy. Made a couple starts early. About this time last year, we were all blown away. Then he got hurt. And then the front office realized, you know what? We want you to just have a healthy full season. I remember David Force said that at winter meetings in Nashville back in December. And as soon as he said that, the lights in my head went off saying, closer, closer, closer. And sure enough, I think it was spring training. I joked with Mark Kotze in an interview. I said, I'm going to predict that sooner than later this season, you're going to have Mason Miller as the closer. Of course, his answer was, well, he's got to earn the role. Well, seems like he's earned it. Seems like he's established it. It seems like he might be one of the A's best closers, like if he can keep this going, since Dennis Eckersley. And there have been some really good ones since then. But the point being is that you see something, you sense something electric. I mean, 103.3 miles an hour on the heater. Yeah, maybe that's what I'm sensing that's electric. But also that slider. It's got the east-west shape to it, comes in at 87. So you're talking about a breaking pitch at 87 and the heater at 103. Is that 16 miles an hour of a differential? You can't time that. If you don't know what's coming, you can't even adjust. To see the heart of the Yankees order not be able to catch up to Mason Miller on this last road trip, what does that tell you? Now, big questions here, obviously. It's only the first month. This is a new role for him. He's exerting himself like never before, and only recently did he do back-to-back games where he made the save. Obviously, not every game presents a save opportunity, but my point is that we'll see how he can sustain and persist health-wise. It's a lot less innings than he ever threw before, but the effort, the max effort and velocity that he's pitching with, I mean, last year he was 100, 101. Now he's 102, 103. So knock on wood and everything else, I hope he stays healthy. I hope this continues with all the success, but we'll see. Like the team, we'll just see how it goes over months and months and months. But if he can do what he's doing now across the rest of this season, I think there's going to be some trophies with Mason Miller's name on it by the end of this year. And I mentioned before that the pitchers have to do a really good job this year because the offense, well, it's not just one bat. I guess that's the headline. That's kind of the good headline. They had a recent 11-game home run streak that ended coming up to this past weekend. So they were getting the homers. And quite honestly, a couple of those games there were multiple solo jobs. Other games there was a 2-run homer and a 3-run homer. So they were scoring a fair amount of their runs via the home run. But that streak is now ended. And again, maybe that's one of the reasons of their success. Because other than that, they're also not hitting for average. The best regular player on the team, like somebody who averages like 3 at-bats per game so far this year, the best regular player in the lineup is hitting 229, and I'm pretty sure that's Abraham Toro. And I think Shea Langoliers might be at 223, and those are the top 2 hitters on the team. So they were hitting homers in a stretch, and they've got back on that train, obviously, since then. But the team's batting average is not very good. They've got the second lowest on-base percentage at 274 in Major League Baseball, and they've got the second most strikeouts at 273 in all of Major League Baseball. They average close to the league last of 2.9 runs per game. Only the Chicago White Sox score fewer runs, and every other team in the league besides the A's and White Sox averages 3+ runs per game. So I'm kind of saying this in a weird way. Everybody's chipping in a little bit, but nobody's chipping in a lot offensively. Now, there's your room for growth. If somebody gets hot, if somebody carries the team with their bat, if a couple players do that, maybe this team wins even more games. But as of right now, nobody's really doing a lion's share of whatever is happening offensively, which is not much. And that brings us right back to pitching. Sears and Blackburn in the rotation, they've been doing a great job. Not to diminish Wood or Stripling or Boyle, and it's been nice actually that the A's rotation hasn't had to skip a beat, haven't had too many in-between situations, not a lot of health issues. Again, knock on wood so far for them. Wood, Stripling, and Boyle have all shown flashes. Nobody has been great, though, like Sears and Blackburn have. And Paul Blackburn, to start off this year, was at 19+ innings without a run scored against him, was magnificent. Obviously, his most recent one in Baltimore was a little bit of a departure from that, but I think he's allowed, is it 12 or 13 total runs in his 5 or 6 starts so far? He's been great. But the most important stat, like I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on stats. With Sears and Blackburn, the most important thing you can look at is how many games they start where they give their team a chance to win. And if you look at the days that it's their assignment, generally speaking, the A's have won a lot of those days. The A's also had a recent stretch. Now, this is with the Bats, where through a 9-game span, they scored 3 runs or fewer of support in all of those games. That makes starting and being a bullpen pitcher really hard. You're not getting run support as a starter, and as a bullpen guy, you're coming in there with, kind of a walking on eggshells type situation. So the Bats haven't exactly been helping the A's pitching one bit. But I wanted to point out Sears and Blackburn, and quite honestly, for Paul Blackburn, a prior All-Star, I think this is the year where if he pitches so well, and contractually, I think other teams are going to be out there looking for Paul Blackburn and his services before the trade deadline. So that brings me to the final thing here. Is all of this even sustainable? Like, I don't think it's going to change instantly. I don't think they're going to have a 2-26 May. I just don't think that's going to happen. Essentially, we know enough about them right now to understand that, yeah, they're capable of this. Nobody's playing crazy out of their mind. They are getting some lucky breaks and bounces here and there. And winning a lot of close games, but for now they can probably keep it going. We will, though, have a much better idea by the month of June whether they continue to get better, whether there are some reinforcements, whether some of those bats start surging, hitting for average and also hitting for power. Maturation with this group has definitely happened. And I know Zach Geloff has been hurt here in the recent time, and he didn't get off to the hottest start this year, almost hit for the cycle on the first road trip of the year. But you're seeing steps by Shea Langoliers and Lawrence Butler and on and on and on. Even Esteury Ruiz to go back down to AAA, then come back up to the big leagues, hit a bunch of homers to begin with. I think everybody's game is taking those next steps. And maturation alone, I predicted this in the beginning of the year, the team would get better by 4 or 5 wins easy just based on maturation. They didn't have to make one single change from last year to this year. They would easily get a handful of wins just on their young players getting better. I also go into this about sustainability. This is an A's defense that has turned the most double plays in Major League Baseball, so they've got out of some jams. They've got into some situations that could have been a lot worse than they've got out of those situations with double plays. They're also a team that has committed the second most errors in all of Major League Baseball. So they've got to clean up the errors in some way, shape, or form. They've got to keep the defense going to be able to turn double plays and get out of jams. The other final question here is that you really wonder how much depth actually exists beyond the present. Any good team, and even if you're going to be a 70-win team, if that's what they're aiming for, any team like that with a goal is going to be tested. When a player is out for 2 months, or somebody slumps really hard, or the rotation has a couple turns where things don't go well, or you can't figure things out like from the bullpen, or whatever, whenever. The point being is that I don't know how much exists beyond what we're seeing right now. And they've gone through some injuries here and there. No J.D. Davis, no Zach Geloff, as I just mentioned. But we'll see, and this team will be tested in their depth over the course of a season, and maybe the trade deadline and other things of what they'll actually be able to accomplish. So a lot of people taking notes saying, wait, the A's beat who? The A's just beat the Orioles in a 3-game set in Baltimore? The A's just split a 4-game series in the Bronx with the Yankees? Yes, they did. And they're catching ears and eyes and attention, and it is just the first month, but it's a lot better way than they started last season and even the season prior to that. You made it here to the end of the video. You know I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. That'll help me, this video, and this channel. And don't forget to go down there and hit that subscribe button so I can definitely see you back here next time.